in which the Washington Post not only wrote 8 very useful, lengthy, analytic stories about the classified sector of American industrial life built around surveillance and data processing, the Post produced an enormous database, which is publicly available to everyone through the newspaper, of all the classified contractors available to them in public record, what they do for the government, what they're paid, and what can be known about them. A database which can be used to create all sorts of journalism beyond what the Post published itself. I would encourage everybody to take a look at Top Secret America. What it will show you is how many Googles there are under the direct control of the United States government, as well as how many Googles there are under the control of Google. In other words, the vast, outspreading web, which joins the traditional post-Second World War U.S. listening to everything, everywhere on Earth outside the United States, to the newly available listening to things inside the United States that used to be against the law in my country as I knew its law, to all the data now available in all the commercial collection systems, which includes everything you type into search boxes about what you believe, wish, hope, fear, or doubt, as well as every travel reservation you make and every piece of tracking data coming off your friendly smartphone. When governments talk about the future of the net these days, I have on decent authority from government officials in several countries. When governments talk about the future of the net these days, they talk almost entirely in terms of cyber war. A field in which I've never had much interest and which has a jargon all its own, but some current lessons from intergovernmental discussions about cyber war are probably valuable to us here. The 3 most powerful collections of states on Earth, the United States of America, the European Union, and the People's Republic of China, discuss cyber war at a fairly high intergovernmental level fairly regularly. Some of the people around that table have disagreements of policy, but there is a broad area of consensus. In the world of cyber war, they talk about exfiltration. We would call that spying. They mean exfiltrating our data off our networks into their pockets. Exfiltration, I am told by government officials here and there and everywhere, exfiltration is broadly considered by all the governments to be a free-fire zone. Everybody may listen to everything, everywhere, all the time. We don't believe in any governmental limits. And the reason is every government wants to listen and no government believes listening can be prevented. On that latter point, I think they're too pessimistic, but let's grant them that they've spent a lot of money trying and they think they know. Where the disagreements currently exist, I am told by the government officials I talk to, concerns not exfiltration, but what they call network disruption, by which they mean destroying freedom. The basic attitude here is of 2 parties in balanced speech. One side in that conversation says, what we want is clear rules. We want to know what we're allowed to attack, what we have to defend, and what we do with the things that are neither friendly nor enemy. The other side in that conversation says, we recognize no distinctions. Anywhere in the net where there is a threat to our national security or our national interests, we claim the right to disrupt or destroy that threat regardless of its geographical location. I need to characterize for you which among the governments, the United States of America, the European Union, and the People's Republic of China take those different positions. And I should say that my guess is that within all those governments there are differences of opinion on those points, dominant factions and less dominant factions. But all parties are increasingly aware that in North America is where the data mining is. And that's either a benefit, a dubiousness, or a problem, depending upon which state or collection of states you represent. European data protection law has done this much. It has put your personal data almost exclusively in North America, where it is uncontrolled. To that extent, European legislation succeeded. The data mining industries are concentrated outside the European Union, largely for reasons of legal policy. They operate, as any enterprise tends to operate, in the part of the world where there is least control over their behavior. There is no prospect that the North American governments, particularly the government of the United States, whose national security policy now depends on listening and data mining everything, are going to change that for you. No possibility. No time soon. When he was a candidate for president, at the beginning, in the Democratic primaries, Barack Obama was in favor of not immunizing American telecommunications giants for participation in spying domestically inside the United States without direct public legal authorization. By the time he was a candidate in the general election, he was no longer in favor of preventing immunization. Indeed, he, as a senator from Illinois, did not filibuster the legislation immunizing the telecoms giants, and it went through. As you are aware, the Obama administration's policies with respect to data mining, surveillance, and domestic security in the net are hardly different from the predecessor administrations, except where they are more aggressive about government control. We can't depend upon the pro-freedom bias in the listening to everybody, everywhere, about everything now going on. Profit motive will not produce privacy, let alone will it produce robust defense for freedom in the street. If we are going to build systems of communication for future politics, we're going to have to build them under the assumption that the network is not only untrusted, but untrustworthy. And we're going to have to build under the assumption that centralized services can kill you. We can't fool around about this. We can't let Facebook dance up and down about their privacy policy. That's ludicrous. We have to replace the things that create vulnerability and lure our colleagues around the world into using them to make freedom, only to discover that the promise is easily broken by a kill switch. Fortunately, we actually do know how to engineer ourselves out of this situation. Cheap, small, low-power plug servers are the form factor we need. And they exist everywhere now, and they will get very cheap, very quick, very soon. A small device the size of a cell phone charger running a low-power chip with a wireless NIC or two and some other available ports and some very sweet free software of our own is a practicable device for creating significant personal privacy and freedom-based communication. Think what it needs to have in it. Mesh networking? We're not quite there, but we should be. OpenBTS, asterisk? Yeah, we could make telephone systems that are self-constructing out of parts that cost next to nothing. Federated rather than centralized microblogging, social networking, photo exchange, anonymous publication platforms based around cloud web servers. We can do all of that. Your data at home, in your house, where they have to come and get it, facing whatever the legal restrictions are, comma, if any, comma, in your society about what goes on inside the precincts of the home. Encrypted email, just all the time. Perimeter defense for all those wonky Windows computers and other bad devices that roll over anytime they're pushed at by a 12-year-old. Proxy services for climbing over national firewalls. Smart tunneling to get around anti-neutrality activity by upstream ISPs and other network providers. All of that can be easily done on top of stuff we already make and use all the time. We have general purpose distributions of stacks more than robust enough for all of this, and a little bit of application layer work to do on the top. Yesterday in the United States, we formed the Freedom Box Foundation, which I plan to use as the temporary or long-term, as the case may be, organizational headquarters for work making free software to run on small format server boxes, free hardware wherever possible, unfree hardware where we must, in order to make available around the world at low prices appliances human beings will like interacting with that produce privacy and help to secure robust freedom. We can make such objects cheaper than the chargers for smartphones. We can give people something that they can buy at very low cost, that will go in their houses, that will run free software to provide them services that make life better on the ordinary days, and really come into their own on those not-so-ordinary days when we're out in the street making freedom. Thank you for calling. A Belarusian theater troupe that got arrested and heavily beaten on after the so-called elections in Minsk this winter exfiltrated itself to New York City in January, did some performances of Tom Stoppard and gave some interviews. I'm sorry, Harold Pinter, and gave some interviews. One of the Belarusian actors who was part of that troupe said in an interview with the New York Times, the Belarusian KGB is the most honest organization on earth. After the Soviet Union fell apart, they saw no need to change anything they did, so they saw no need to change their name either. And I thought that was a really quite useful comment. We need to keep in mind that they are exactly the same people they always were, whether they're in Cairo or Moscow or Belarus or Los Angeles or Jakarta or anywhere else on earth. They're exactly the same people they always were. So are we exactly the same people we always were too. We set out a generation ago to make freedom, and we're still doing it. But we have to pick up the pace now. We have to get more urgent now. We have to aim our engineering more directly at politics now. Because we have friends in the street trying to create human freedom. And if we don't help them, they'll get hurt. We rise to challenges. This is one. We've got to do it. Thank you very much.